So ScanLAB Projects is a group of artists, architects, filmmakers, coders, computer experts. And we work together to digitize the world. So we take real world spaces and we make digital versions of them. Sometimes, as with the project of the Photographer's Gallery, we act like artists. We create artworks to commission. Quite often though, our projects are collaborative. So we work as a team of researchers trying to capture a space or an event or a moment. So we try and learn something new about that moment through a digital archiving of it. So Horizontal Humans is a new commission for the Photographer's Gallery. And we actually took that opportunity to start a new research project with a group of researchers at the University for Central Lancashire. So the scientists that we're working with run a taphonometric research centre. So they're studying decomposition, bodily decomposition. Up to 100 pig carcasses are positioned in the landscape and monitored for how they decay. The reason that the research teams at UCLan are doing this is that when you find a human body in suspicious circumstances, you need to understand when they died. You also need to understand why they died, but when is really, really important. So they use pig carcasses as a mimic for human bodies. And what you have going on in Burnley are a whole series of kind of faked human death scenarios, I guess, laid out on the landscape, and they're being perpetually observed to understand how we might backdate a suspicious human death. So Horizontal Humans adds a new tool to the way that those guys work. We use the terrestrial laser scanner to map the decomposition of pig carcasses as they decompose over a 3-month period in a field in Burnley. So for this project, we're using a terrestrial 3D laser scanner. So the laser scanner it's not a camera. It doesn't use optics to channel in light and capture a view of the world. What it actually does is take measurements, and it takes those measurements individually. So the laser scanner looks at a single point, it fires out a laser, and it measures where that point is. It then moves ever so slightly, measures another point, and it does this up to 1 million times a second. So what our instrument does is it looks at the world, measures it in millions and millions of points, and creates a digital version of the space that we've scanned. So once we've used the laser scanner to capture all of this spatial information, we actually do a much more traditional photographic process as well to capture colour information. And we map that colour information onto this new 3D world that we've created. So that's why not only do you have this really highly accurate and incredibly detailed spatial information, the colours are all there as well. So the role of the filmmaker is very interesting here, because on the one hand you make decisions on location about what you capture, but on the other hand you make decisions about what you show at a later date in a digital world. So you have this kind of real world moment of curation and then this digital world moment of curation. I think the relationship between those two decision-making acts is really interesting. So we think about the 3D scanner as the next generation of the camera, and it's particularly relevant to this project, which coincides with the forensic season at the Photographer's Gallery here. So the 3D scanner allows you to impartially capture a view, but then interrogate it with real purpose at a later date. So for the purposes of the gallery, we're making, to all intents and purposes, an art film from this data. But we know full well that this data will also be used for scientific purposes and interrogated in a completely different way. The fundamental reason why our practice is so interested in laser scanning is that it's at a really kind of critical point in its history at the moment. It's kind of like early photography when, you know, people like Muybridge and Watkins and Weed were getting their hands on these first cameras and starting to really test them in anger. So what's fascinating to us about this technology is not only is it proliferating, not only are there expert users and probably a multiplicity of users coming shortly, but also this technology isn't really invented to see in terms of the visual. You're not meant to produce images from this. It's for machines to understand the world around them and make machinic decisions. And our practice is particularly interested in how those machines see, but also what that tells us about how we will see in the future. Because increasingly it's going to be machines that are doing that seeing for us.